On January 14th in the year 1639, in Hartford, Connecticut, the first constitution in the American colonies, the Fundamental Orders, is adopted by representatives of Wethersfield, Windsor, and Hartford. The Dutch discovered the Connecticut River in 1614, but English Puritans from Massachusetts largely accomplished European settlements of the region. During the 1630s, they flocked to the Connecticut Valley from the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and in 1638, representatives from 3 major Puritan settlements in Connecticut met to set up a unified government for the new colony. Roger Ludlow, a lawyer, wrote much of the Fundamental Orders and presented a binding and compact frame of government that put the welfare of the community above that of individuals. It was also the first written constitution in the world to declare the modern idea that the foundation of authority is in the free consent of the people. In 1622, the Charter of Connecticut superseded the Fundamental Orders, though the majority of the original document's laws and statutes remained in force until 1818. It was January 14th in the year 1784 that the Continental Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, ending the War for Independence. In the document, which was known as the Second Treaty of Paris because the Treaty of Paris was also the name of the agreement that had ended the 7 Years' War in 1763, Britain officially agreed to recognize the independence of its 13 former colonies as the new United States of America. In addition, the treaty settled the boundaries between the U.S. and what remained of the British North America. U.S. fishermen won the right to fish in the Grand Banks off the Newfoundland coast and in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Both sides agreed to pay debts of creditors incurred during the war. They also agreed to release all prisoners of war. The U.S. promised to return land confiscated during the war to its British owners and to stop any further confiscation of British property and to honor the property left by the British Army on U.S. shores, including Negroes or slaves. Both countries assumed perpetual rights to access the Mississippi River. Despite the agreement, many of the issues remain points of contention between the two nations in the post-war years. The British didn't abandon their western forts as promised, and attempts by British merchants to collect outstanding debts from Americans were unsuccessful, as American merchants were unable to collect from their customers, many of whom were struggling farmers. In Massachusetts, where by 1786 the courts were clogged with foreclosure proceedings, farmers rose in a violent protest known as Shays' Rebellion, which tested the ability of the new United States to maintain law and order within its borders and instigated serious reconsideration of the Articles of Confederation. It was January 14th in the year 1970 that Diana Ross and the Supremes performed their final concert. They were the most successful American pop group of the 1960s, a group whose 12 number one hits in the first full decade of the rock and roll era places them behind only Elvis and the Beatles in terms of chart dominance. They helped define the very sound of the 60s, but like fellow icons, the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel, they came apart in the first year of the 70s. The curtain closed for good on Diana Ross and the Supremes on January 14th in 1970 at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. The farewell concert in Vegas was the final act in a drawn-out breakup that didn't become official until November of 1969, but probably became inevitable in July of 1967 when Motown Records chief Berry Gordy gave Diana Ross top billing over the Supremes. That move clearly signaled Gordy's intention to launch Diana on a solo career, something he may have had in mind from the moment he upgraded her first name from Diane and upstaged her fellow Supremes by making Diana the group's official lead singer. Mary Wilson, Florence Ballard, and Diana Ross grew up together in Detroit's Brewster Housing Project and started out as co-equals in a singing group they called the Primettes. It took them several years of toiling within the hit factory Berry Gordy was assembling before the girls made their breakthrough in 1964. Those years included a Gordy-inspired name change for the group, a Gordy-mandated buffing and polishing in Motown's in-house finishing school, and eventually a Gordy-dictated elevation of Diana over her childhood friends, Flo and Mary. Yet even into early 1964, the group that would become Motown's greatest commercial success was known as the No Hit Supremes around Hitsville, USA, the company's Detroit headquarters. It was Where Did Our Love Go?, a song written by the soon-to-be legendary team of Holland Dozier Holland and rejected by the soon-to-be eclipsed Marvelettes, that kicked off a run of success that saw the Supremes score an incredible 5 straight number one singles in a 10-month span from July 1964 to May 1965. There would be 5 more number one hits before Motown would force Flo Ballard out of the group she created. 2 more number one hits would come with Cindy Birdsong as Ballard's replacement before Diana Ross left the Supremes behind for good. The historic information divulged on this audio file can be verified on History.com.